I was 29 kilos. I was desperately sick, but my mind was clear. When people talk about 6 million Jewish people were murdered, and please, if I hear somebody talk about 6 million Jews died in Auschwitz, nobody died in Auschwitz. Nobody died during the Holocaust. People were murdered, people perished. You cannot be accurate when you count in millions. There were many, many more who are not accounted for, like my mom. We had a farm. It was beautiful. There was a small house. We had a very beautiful lifestyle at home. I had only one sister. And, the family was very close. It was very difficult to accept the restrictions because we were the first country affected, and Slovakia was created into a self-governing puppet republic. The president accepted immediately the Nazi Nuremberg laws. The law was introduced without warning that all 16 years old Jewish boys and Jewish girls will be collected and taken away. The SS guards came, my sister was on the list, they collected her, took her away, and we never saw her again. I was devastated. My sister was only 1.5 years my senior, and we were growing up together like twins. I wasn't a teenager. I was deprived of the best years in my life, my childhood, my happy childhood in a happy family surrounding. And later on, of course, even my young adult years were severely affected. A lady who was our next door neighbor, she was a very intelligent woman, a pharmacist. She had her pharmacy next door where we lived. The good friend brought the guards there one morning and denounced us. We were in Sered, in that collection camp. I think it could have been maybe 2 weeks, and it soon became overcrowded. And one morning they took us out from the barracks and we marched to the railway line, and there were the cattle carriages waiting for us. And we were pushed into these cattle carriages, maybe 100 people in one, overcrowded, filthy, smelly. Once we were inside, we just fell over each other. There was no room even to sit down. They locked from outside, they bolted the carriages, and we were on the way to Auschwitz. And they opened up the doors. We were actually blinded by the sunlight or the daylight. Dr. Josef Mengele was in charge to select people from the human cargo arriving on a daily basis. And with his finger he showed which side to go. The people looking fit were shown to the right side with the finger. On the left side the people were taken to the gas chambers and were killed. Never saw my father again. Never saw him again. Never saw my grandma again. My mom came in front of Dr. Mengele. She was only 39 years old. Healthy looking. She was shown to the right side. So was I behind her. I was with my mom together, and that was the biggest moral support I could have had. Now, when we came into Birkenau, before we were taken into our barracks, we were put into different groups, and one of the couples, these girls from the very first transport, some of them became couples in charge of all the other inmates, and some of them were very cruel indeed. And I recognized one of them. She was a schoolmate from my sister. in the same transport with my sister, and she was screaming, and she had a whip, and I sang out to her. I said, "Etta, what are you doing?" She recognized me, and she said, "I'm not a human anymore." As a young girl, I did not believe in bad people. I don't even believe today in bad people. But I lost my belief when I saw these horrible people without any feelings. And we not only had men as people guards, we also had women. And they were just as cruel as their menfolk. And you know, that was very hard for me to believe, because some of these guards were family people. They had wives, they had children. They went home and they sat down and ate a meal together. But there was no compassion. Nothing was ever shown to us. It was just the beginning of winter. It was very, very cold. And we had to march to a forest about 10 kilometers away every morning. And there we had to dig trenches for the Nazi army. One morning we were told not to go to the forest, not to march there. We had to march on the highway. And that was the beginning of the death march. It was a horrible, horrible thing to describe, because we were already marching skeletons. Whoever wanted to have a rest was shot immediately. We arrived in Dresden after having marched for hundreds of kilometers. Dresden was bombarded down to the ground. Believe it or not, the guards left us unattended. They ran into shelters with their dogs, and we were left outside, and we were not scared. We looked up and we saw the bombs, and we said, that is manna from heaven. Of course, after the air raid, the guards returned, and we were transported to Bergen-Belsen. And Bergen-Belsen was liberated 3.5 weeks before the end of the war. Some people cried from happiness, they realized. Some people were hysterically laughing, and some people couldn't speak. We couldn't react at all. At that time, we were already zombies. The next day, the British officers wanted to know who we were, where we will be repatriated to, because they knew already it will be the end of the war. And my mom came to the table. She gave her registration, her information. They gave her a registration card. It was called a DP card, disposed person. She held it in her hand, and she collapsed, and I lost her there and then. I was devastated, still am. They took her away, and I never knew where she was buried or. I was somehow lying out in the open. I was unable to get up. I talked about the couple who I saw in Auschwitz, Etta, and I saw her walking past, and she had that blanket in her hand, and she saw me, and she threw the blanket at me, and that's how I inherited that blanket. That blanket was made in Auschwitz, woven in Auschwitz by inmates for the SS people from human hair and recycled old fibers. That blanket I had with me until I was repatriated myself. And that blanket finished up in the Sydney Jewish Museum. It is the only blanket of such colors and pattern in the world, because they were never two alike. People tell you, why don't you forget? Don't live in the past. What can I reply to that? I can never forget, Neither do I want to forget. I would feel guilty if I forget. The past lives in me. You can never, ever get rid of these horrible, sad moments which one had to endure. I don't need to forget. No, I don't want to forget. And I don't want the people to forget.